Get the called session. You can have a seat. It's going to be a few minutes, Mr. George, before we get to you if you want. Need a motion to approve today's agenda.
Second.
All in favor? We have the minutes from the meeting 2 weeks ago. I think everyone got a copy from Ms. Kim. If there's a motion to approve the minutes as she had drafted.
I have a correction.
Okay.
And I don't have the minutes before me, what paragraph, what page, but I think I was incorrectly quoted or summarized in those minutes. There's a statement said I did not understand the peer review. That was an incorrect statement. I said I understood it, I read it, but there were some aspects that I did not understand because I had had proper training. So it wasn't a blanket statement, but it does say that in those minutes. So I request that correction be made.
It states you stated you had the lack of technical knowledge to understand the report. Is that
That's
the
not what I
statement
said.
you're referring to?
That's the statement I'm referring to.
That is the statement you're referring to?
And it's incorrectly summarized. Because that's just a synopsis, doesn't mean it's not a,
Right, well,
Word
the
for
minutes
word,
are
so-
just a synopsis.
exactly. So that was incorrectly noted in the minutes.
What do you propose to replace the language with?
With the language that I said, I'm not going to change the minutes, but I'm saying it was improperly reported.
Okay.
What did you say it said? I didn't have the intelligence. What did it say?
No, it says that you stated you had a lack of technical knowledge to understand the report.
And I said that I read the report, understood aspects of it, some components of it, as well as some people with, probably with exemption of Andrea, didn't understand some of the parts relative to the appraisal process or terminology there.
Okay, so besides that sentence, with the exception of that sentence,
The rest of it looked okay to me.
all right,
Make a motion to,
I make a motion to accept the minutes with the necessary corrections.
okay. I second.
all in favor?
Chair, one other question. There's a notation in the minutes on the election of the secretary. And if I'm correct, the chair only votes in case of a tie. But it's denoted that it's 3-2. Really should have been 2-2. Chair voted to break the tie. I think that's the proper way to do it. Okay?
It came out all the same, correct?
It came out the same, but I'm saying the reason the chair voted was because there was a tie.
Okay,
Okay?
so to clarify that that was a tie breaking, if you make those changes, then the rest, okay. Now, anything else?
No, I was just stating that for the order of the meeting. I didn't change the vote, I just want to make sure going forward, that was an item.
They were approved with the changes, with those two changes. Okay. Mr. Rutledge, you had the next item on the agenda, the addition of prayer and pledge to open the Board of Assessors
Yes.
meeting, which that change, if passed, wouldn't go into effect till next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. We will hear from you.
So you're,
Is Mr. Rutledge, if you want to address it and make a motion for that.
Yes, I do want to make a motion that we start every meeting with a prayer and a pledge, just like the commissioners do.
Clarity, who's going to provide the, is someone going to lead it, or it's going to rotate, or what's your,
Whoever feels like they want to pray.
right.
Whoever wants to pray, I'll pray.
I'm just asking for clarity. Is it gonna rotate or individual, I assume?
It can rotate the way the Board of Commissioners do it is before the agenda goes out, whoever volunteers is listed on the agenda as the person to do it for that meeting.
Okay. Only reason I say it, sometimes you invite guests in to do it.
Yeah, and you can y'all
Okay.
can, just have somebody lined up before the meeting.
Just for clarity.
Is there a motion? Make a motion. Is there a second?
Make a second.
All in favor? All opposed?
I voted for it, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, it's unanimous. Mr. Rutledge, I believe the next item on the agenda is yours as well, I believe in November, the board changed the public speaking time from 10 minutes to 2 minutes, and you're proposing that it be changed back to 10?
Yes, I do make a motion that we changed it back to the original 10 minutes as it was before, just to give the citizens time to speak their voice to this board.
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
I go to a lot of meetings.
So,
and-
I apologize. Just so that we do this the right way, for discussion, it needs to be motioned and seconded for discussion.
You're right.
Okay, so I make the motion.
Okay. Do we have a second for discussion?
What is
It's on
the time?
10th.
Okay, I'll second.
Second for discussion.
What I was saying, I go to a lot of meetings, and, 10 minutes is a long time for someone to get up. 3 people, that's 30 minutes. And if they're talking about a single item or topic, then I think 10 minutes is excessive. Not only to the board, but to other speakers that may want to speak. So I think consideration should be granted on both sides, not only the board members, but also the audience that may be here for other business. I think I'd like to amend that motion to make it 5 minutes.
I believe before there were issues with the digest that y'all commented that no one really attended the meeting, right?
No, yeah, until, I guess, people started being invited to come to the meeting, there was never an audience here. And Andrew was here before I was here, so she can attest to that, or,
So it shouldn't be a problem at 10 minutes then?
it is a problem at 10 minutes, because 10 minutes is valuable time that we could continue with business. And I'm not getting combative with you. I mean, I'm supporting it in a way, but I'm saying 5 minutes as opposed to 10 minutes.
I think we're here to serve the people, and the people need a voice.
So we can.
And that's what I said, to serve the people, so that their time isn't wasted with somebody up here rattling on for 10 minutes.
Right.
If everybody here want to have a speak at 10 minutes, and that's a lot of time, we won't get out here until tomorrow, and the last person to speak won't get out here until tomorrow. So,
Well, we can use discretion. If we have a lot of people that want to speak, we could say, raise your hand, and then we can start allocating the time then. But as a standard procedure, it's always been 10 minutes.
I had asked Ms. Brody to give some direction on the rules, that if it were 5 and someone were speaking longer, they were not finished, that we could allow them to complete what they're wanting to say. Is that correct?
That's correct. And you could see if it's a hot topic item and it needs to be 5, so you can have a lot more citizens heard, you could sort of keep it at the 5, and then, if there's just one person to be heard on a subject and goes a little bit over, it's within you all's discretion.
All right.
Whatever you want to do, just making that comment.
So if we accept the modified motion, or motion to amend it to 5 minutes, then we would still have the discretion to extend it if we wanted to for any person. We just would not have the discretion to limit it. So,
Do we have to
That's
vote
true.
on that as a board, or does the chairman make that discretion?
As far as if
Yeah.
they're not finished at
Right.
5 minutes and keeps going, it would be the chairperson. If, perhaps if it's if it's 10 people speaking on the same subject and it's sort of been heard multiple times, then, stick to 5 minutes. If it's new information, and you all feel it's important and relevant, you could allow them to go past the 5 minutes.
Okay.
But you can't give them less time. You can't have on the agenda that they have 10 minutes and cut them off at 5 if it's something that you've heard 10 times.
Okay,
Okay.
I mean, that's a good compromise.
Yeah.
Five minutes.
Okay, so is there a second for the motion to amend it to 5 minutes then?
Yes.
Second. All right, all in favor of extending it from 2 minutes to 5 minutes? Okay, any opposed? There's none. Next on the agenda is personnel. When we met here 2 weeks ago, the new members of the board had only been appointed and in place for approximately 11 days. So we were presented with numerous reports, records, documents, and very little time to review it. Since that time, the board members have availed themselves to hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of documents, and I have a list for anyone who's interested. But some of those sources include the Georgia Department of Revenue publications and handbooks, Appraisal Procedure Manual, Georgia Guide for Tax Assessors, the Certification for Assessors Handbook for Course 1, Title 40, Chapter 5 of Official Code of Georgia Annotated, the policies and procedures of this board, the Jones County personnel policies and procedures. We've reviewed tax assessor minutes from 2024. We've reviewed recordings of the meetings, which are publicly available on YouTube, Board of Commissioner meetings, the tax assessor websites, adjoining county websites, court filings that were presented to us relating to Jones County Superior Court Case 2025 CV010. We have reviewed DOAA sales studies, the preliminary sales ratio for 2024, the 2024 performance review, multiple documents, personnel records. It goes on. Just to be clear, though, anything that we address tonight that is taken into account for any decision will be specified. So that was solely for our purpose of catching up. In review of those documents, though, Mr. Andrews, it did cross my mind that because the county commissioners, and we were presented 2 weeks ago by Mr. Nolan with the county commissioners' letters that they had presented to the prior board, which included yourself and Ms. Morgan, and he did provide the filings in the case I mentioned. I know that you and Ms. Morgan are, of course, going through the due process of exercising your rights, but my concern became the rights of the citizens to an impartial board, and wanted to see if you wanted to address whether you believe there's a conflict of interest considering the pending litigation and participation on any matters that the board takes up that are one of, I believe, 4 bases that the county cited for removal. Obviously, you're board members and participate in everything, but I believe Ms. Morgan abstained 2 weeks ago from voting on maybe a motor vehicle that pertained to her husband. We wouldn't vote on our own homestead exemptions. So considering that that is pending litigation, I just wanted to address any potential conflict of interest.
I don't have a conflict of interest. That was a point of order. My position was the Board of Commissioners didn't have the authority to remove me. And that's why I offered an appeal to the Superior Court. Now, Mr. Nolan's draft, I hadn't went through that because I've asked for an attorney to provide legal guidance when an attorney submits a draft to you. But I assume you think that my actions will be, what do you say, prejudiced against any other actions of the other board members? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that in looking at the report and looking at the court filings and looking at where this county stands, I think there's an overlap certainly in what the performance review showed, and those are the same grounds.
Okay, so let me
that-
interject here.
Excuse me, let me finish. That there are the same grounds, and so it would go either way. It could be that a decision or a comment, the discussion could be in this room for purposes of the civil case, or it could be reversed, that anything said here and done here could affect the civil case. So it is kind of a two-way street.
So you're not a legal attorney, so are you acting to give me advice from a legal standpoint?
No, I'm asking
that's
you
just
just
your-
what I said. Do you think
No.
that there's a conflict of interest?
I'm not
just
there to
like-
make that decision. That's for a
Okay.
legal decision.
Right,
You
well,
asked me a point of order based upon a conflict of interest. That is the legal position, and I don't see it as one, but I could be misinformed. So from my vantage point, your question should be asked from a legal counsel to whether there's a conflict of interest, not from a layman board member.
Well, the example that I gave was we wouldn't vote on our own homestead exemption.
I understood that.
We abstained, and Ms. Morgan abstained from voting on a matter for her husband. I just want to put it out there. I don't know that it's been brought up, and want to make it, to bring it up and address it so that you can address it. If you do not think there's a conflict of interest, then
I'm not
that's
voting on
perfectly
a homestead
fine.
or a vehicle, but that wasn't the premise of your statement. Your premise of your statement was based upon litigation that is outstanding in the Superior Court, not doing anything with a homestead exemption or a vehicle. That's just the end of that. So again, whether I have a conflict of interest from my position with the Board of Commissioners of Superior Court, then I think that needs to be defined from legal counsel, not from me being a layman. Now, if you want me to answer the latter half of your statement about voting on whether I have a homestead exemption or anything that's being asked of this board, obviously I would abstain. And for the record, more than abstain, I would voice for the record why I feel that it is a conflict. But I don't know what you want me to do to address the board, because I still don't quite understand your two-part question, a three-part question.
There's pending, an open
Yeah,
pending case.
it's a
and-
pending case.
Right. And so if we bring up matters related to it during this meeting, then I've just made you aware. I take it from your answer that you do not
All
believe
right, so
there's a
let me say this, Chair. Let me say this. Let me cut through all this double talk and stuff like this. It's apparent, in your opinion, that I have taken a position arbitrary to my responsibility and my sworn oath to provide a service on this board. That's what you're taking a position.
I asked a question.
You asked a question, but you take the position because you addressed it to me. It wasn't addressed to anyone else. And for that reason, I feel that you are isolating and isolating me out with your comment. Now, comments about conflicts of interest, that's relative to everyone. Everybody got a vehicle, everybody owns property. Just like Ms. Morgan did. So I think the other board members will have the opportunity to state if they had a conflict of interest, then they would abstain from voting on any action taken by this board. But you directed it to me.
Right,
And
because you-
I'm taking offense to it because now you're singling me out. And I don't come to this board to be singled out. I come here to work as a unit, and I try to provide services just like I did with the 5 minutes to help direct the board in a positive manner. But if now you're going to draw a line and you're going to put me in a point, then I'm not going to sit here and you're going to bark at me and I'm not going to bark back. Does that make sense? You're going to respect me just like I respect you.
Well, Mr. Andrews, no one else, if Miss Morgan were here, then I would address her too. Y'all are the two that have the pending civil suit. And so that's why I'm addressing it to you. If you feel, which apparently you do strongly, that there's not a conflict, then so be it. We'll move forward.
Okay, well, I still don't, you gotta clarify this to me, because I'm still not clear.
Okay, well, we're not
Well,
gonna
I'm just
spend
asking.
a lot of
You said
time.
Ms. Morgan, stain from a vehicle that she had on there, right?
As an example. I think that was
That
given
was
as an example.
an example
That's what I
from the last
understood, and I
meeting.
understand that example. But I'm saying that you singled it out, so I would assume, since it's an example, everyone on this board, it would be subject to that same example, right? Wouldn't that be the same thing?
Well, if you all should abstain and not vote if the matter has to deal with your personal property. I think the question, just to interject, because it's getting a little bit out of hand, is you as a board member, and I speak to everyone on this board, are the one who would abstain if you feel that you have a real or perceived conflict of interest in voting on any subject matter. And so the question from chairperson, I'm gathering, is does Mr. Andrew feel that matters to be voted on that are directly included in the pending litigation that currently involve himself and Ms. Morgan, does he feel from his opinion that there's a real or perceived conflict of interest? If he does, he can abstain. If he does not, he does not have to abstain. Is that what I'm gathering the issue is?
So
And
that must be something coming down the tube, because you're being very presumptuous, because all I vote on is, COVID, exemptions, homestead exemptions, so.
Okay, well, we're down a rabbit hole, so we will bring it back. I'm taking it the answer is there's not. So if something arises for anyone who has a conflict, we can bring it up. So in reviewing all of this, I want to make a couple of points. And forgive me, I want to make sure I'm reading some of these. The mission statement that's cited on the website for this office for the Board of Assessors is to be fair and equitable to the taxpayers of Jones County while providing excellent customer service to all that need our assistance, as well as the most accurate assessment values possible. The board is required by Georgia statute of ensuring that, among other things, all taxable property within the county is assessed and returned at its fair market value, and that fair market values as between the taxpayers are as fairly and justly equalized. In other words, so each taxpayer pays nearly the same as possible, only such taxpayers' proportion of shares is to be fair. Mr. George, the chief tax appraiser's role, as in the job description, is to manage daily operations of the tax assessor's office and supervise assigned personnel in appraising and valuing real and personal property, all for the purpose of compiling an equitable tax digest. The guidelines that govern the position, which are in the formal job description maintained by the county, is Georgia statute, property tax and appraisal rules and regulations, county and department policies and procedures, and standard operating procedures. The purpose of the job, as it's listed, which is scope and effect, is to properly manage the tax assessor's office and accurately perform valuations and inspections. It specifically notes this position impacts and enhances the county's image, and errors could result in financial losses to the county. From reading the reports, specifically the performance evaluation, the state auditors concluded that Jones County failed to meet the sales ratio in 2022. Appropriate corrective action was not taken. Instead, the use of overrides and grade changes to 9,400 properties were used, all in an effort to keep up with sales. And I believe I watched that in a meeting from September the 5th of last year. The sales chasing, of course, is in violation of procedures in Georgia law. The Georgia Department of Revenue, of course, as we know, we didn't meet the audit or sales ratio in 2023. And just last week, I shared a letter that was sent to the tax commissioner saying that the 2023 digest has now been conditionally approved. The Performance Review Board found, Mr. George, basically a pattern of decision-making that's inconsistent with policies and procedures. I think that what we need to address is whether or not the scope and effect of your job is being met. The state determined that just as described, if not done properly, there would be a financial loss to the county. And it determined that over $300,000 in public utility losses alone occurred. The performance review also addressed the supervision of personnel and decided that staff was not compliant with training requirements, resources were not being utilized properly, and staff is not following applicable law. There's also general allegations of mistreatment this prior board has addressed, and that was the previously referenced hostile work environment. How are you? I'm good. I had requested 2024 numbers earlier this week or last week, which Mr. George provided, and the county is not on track to meet the sales ratio for that year either. The findings of the state, not Lee Stanford, not anyone else, the findings of the State Review Board was that the duties of the office have not been performed as required, that improper and illegal tax assessment acts had occurred, harmed relationships had taken place with stakeholders, and the county suffered a financial loss. They also stated that your formal training is not reflective of your ability to perform the job, and that the office lacks basic organizational plans necessary for the size and complexity. There was conversation which was clarified in the minutes discussion earlier about whether the technical aspect of that report was properly characterized in Mr. Andrews' statements. And we did discuss that it was complex to some degree. After studying it, I found that it's actually written for the layperson. It's written for any county or state official who's not a tax expert. It's very clear. There's no legalese in it. The terms that are contained in it are defined. It explains and discusses what it is referring to in each section. It cites the statute or the tax appraisal rule that governs that particular aspect of the report, and then it makes what it calls a recommendation. And I know you have told us that we need to keep in mind it's just a recommendation, but in reviewing all of those, very few have a choice in any way. It may be how you go about making the change, but they're more of mandates than recommendations. If it says you don't have a policy and you have to have one, then we have to create one. That's not something we can choose. So the recommendation term, I realize it's theirs, but I think that that is more of a mandate and it's a finding. Also, I noticed when we reviewed it and took more time to examine the report that you provided us that had been flagged, that marked what had been completed before the report was issued, what had been completed afterwards, and what was in progress. There are items that are significant to me that are marked as being completed that is no way they could be completed. Communication, for example, that's something that we all continuously strive, and it is marked on the green flag. Training, even though one person may have been brought compliant, the overall finding about training is still an issue that is not immediately correctable. My conclusion when I read and studied the report and the other documents we were provided was that it is our statutory duty to ensure that the office is run properly, that the statutes and tax procedures that govern that office are followed, and that we have a duty to take action if it's not. The assessment of property per that state finding is that there has not been fair and equitable assessments of property in Jones County, and that assessments have been performed improperly and in violation of Georgia statute. Because the board doesn't operate in a vacuum, it affects other agencies and departments here in the county, and of course the citizens. In reviewing the personnel policies, incompetence or inefficiency in performing a duty is a Group 3 offense. I think the board has relied upon your expertise, your knowledge, your experience, and your credibility, but now with the findings from the state, I believe that we need to examine how the office is performing in your job performance. And that is what I would like to open for discussion. And we'll, of course, hear from you first if you'd like, and people can ask questions.
Well, I jotted down some of the things that you said. And let me be clear that, yes, there are things that we need to work on. And as I told you in the last meeting, we're down 2 qualified appraisers on our staff. This is labor intensive, and we must have bodies to do the work. Okay? Now, you talked about a $300,000 loss from public utilities. What you didn't say is that we gave $3 million in new county revenue. That's what you didn't say. So technically, there's no loss. Okay? Now, I provided you the 2024 sales ratio that you asked for earlier this week. And what I tried to explain to you is that the new price per square foot based on the 2024 sales has not been put in our system yet. Why it hasn't been put in our system yet? Because we're still analyzing sales for the last 3 years on price per square foot. Additionally, you didn't approve it yet. So it can't be in our system until I bring it to you with the evidence to say, this should be the new number on the price per square foot, and you approve it. So you wouldn't see it. But if you looked at our 2023 number, which I also gave you, you would see our ratio in-house is at 38%. You didn't mention that. Okay? As far as training is concerned, I explained to you before, after COVID, a lot of Department of Revenue employees left who did the training for those classes. Subsequently, there are less classes each year. Now, there's about 4,000 employees in the state in assessors' offices, and if one class is offered twice in a 6-month period with 30 people, that's 60 spots. Out of that 4,000, there may be 500 people who want to take that course. So you have to put someone in 6, 7, 8 months in advance for training. Okay? Everybody's up to date except Bill Goodman, who was supposed to take a course at the end of January but couldn't for personal reasons. But everybody's up to date in training. Okay? Now, there are certain courses that maybe Kim Adams wants to take that she probably needs to take, But guess what? They're not offered. They're not offered for the next 6, 7 months. You go on the portal and you can see it for yourself. So I can't put her in a class that doesn't exist yet. Okay? But I'm a person who believes in continuing education. Trust me, I do. And there's no reason for me not to send someone to continuing education classes. Okay? Now, the override situation was corrected. Override situation is down to 2.21%, which is far below the 5% threshold. It's all been corrected. Now, you mentioned communication, which is strange to me, because we have excellent communication with other departments. You should ask the tax commissioner's office, and they will tell you that.
I failed to mention when I cited the list that we had read that I did in fact speak to employees, to the tax commissioner, to other county stakeholders, to citizens, you know, that
Yeah.
was done.
Okay. I've heard no complaints from citizens or stakeholders, as you say, or the tax commissioner's office. So I don't know what you're talking about, because we talk to the tax commissioner's office daily, and we have an excellent relationship. That's why we've gotten our digest in 8 years in a row early and on time and approved by the state. So I don't understand that comment, all right? But are there things that we can improve on? Sure. Sure. I don't know what department doesn't have things that they can improve on. And we're doing that, and we've done that. But I need people in our office to do the work. Like I said, I'm 2 people short, okay? I have a person now who we're training. So technically, it's 3 people who we're short, okay? So we're doing the best we can do with what we have to work with, okay? And as I said before, there hasn't been a collection order issued by the state. The most important thing that we do is the tax digest, and that we give our part to the tax commissioner, and the tax commissioner does his part, and he takes those 2 parts to the state for approval for him to bill property taxes. That's the most important thing. And that's what we've done for 8 years in a row, straight. We haven't had a collection order. You know what a collection order is? Well, here's what it is. You have to go in front of a judge. You say, Judge, our digest is out of order. We need to collect taxes. Okay? And the judge says, okay, you can collect 85% until your digest is approved. We haven't had that. We haven't had that at all.
We do have a conditional approval now, though.
We have a conditional approval, yes.
And that is because there's 2 consecutive years that the sales tax ratio was not met, correct?
Has to do with also the COD and the PRD.
Which are also not
Yes.
in line for the numbers that you
Yes,
gave me.
they're close, but they're not there. But once the new price per square foot goes in, and as I said before, I can only go by what my computer says is our ratio that comes out of there. I can't I can't predict what the Department of Audits and Accounts, what samples they're going to pull out of 800. I can't predict that. All I can do is use our computer system, which does a ratio where it comes out and it shows a certain number, which I gave you for 2024, 2023. It came out at 38%. Now, in the past, I explained this in our last year's appeal, we were very close in what Department of Audits and Accounts said and what our computer system said. But somehow that changed in 2022. I don't know why it changed, but there was a difference. But we understand that the price per square foot has to go up, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're analyzing. But you don't analyze 1 year of sales. Because if you analyze 1 year of sales, it could go way up here, and the next year it could just be a trend and it could drop. That's not what you're taught to do. You have to do 2 to 3 years and look at 2 to 3 years of sales to make sure the market stays up there.
Are you taught to do overrides and grade changes?
Overrides and grade changes.
Yes, which were the findings. I think I prefaced everything with it per that finding, not per me, per the
Yeah,
report.
there were some overrides done.
9,400.
No, those weren't overrides.
Those were changes.
Those were changes.
Those were changes.
But that's spot changing.
Those were changes. And what the problem was, as I explained this before, is that there were sales going up in certain areas, where certain areas there weren't sales going up. But that also comes down to staffing, okay? That also comes down to staff. I don't grade houses. I don't grade houses. Staff grades houses, okay? But all those grade situations have already been fixed. It's not going to be an issue going forward because it's all been fixed. And the reason why it was fixed is because the price per square foot is going to go up. So all those changes have been fixed.
Well, fixed implies a mistake or a correction, but in the September meeting, Mr. Andrews actually asked you, when you said you made those changes, specifically because the 22 numbers were not acceptable, you didn't meet the sales ratio, and that you could not understand why the 23 numbers were where they were because you had made those overrides. And Mr. Andrews asked you, wouldn't it be easier to make the table changes?
Yes.
The mass appraisal?
Yes.
And he asked you not once but twice, and you answered in that meeting, no, that because of these sales, I need to make these manual adjustments.
I wouldn't say no. The answer is yes. Yes, it would be easier to do it.
It would be proper.
It would be easier and proper. There are different ways to do it, but it would be easier and proper to do it, of course. But here's the situation, as I keep explaining this to you. You need staff to do the analysis of these, where the market is. And you cannot do that with 2 appraisers who have 35 years experience who retired, and you lose half of your staff. It's impossible to do because there are certain things that you have to do and certain things you have to look at. It's impossible. I don't know any department can lose half of their technical staff and operate at 100% optimal capacity. I don't know anyone.
Could I make a statement? If you only have half your staff, could you not have made an effort to do a countywide reevaluation early on before it got to this point?
You're using the wrong term. You can't do a countywide revaluations in our office. That's not what you do.
I know you don't.
You
The process is a chief appraiser
right.
sees the
Are you trying to
problem.
say that we could do a countywide revaluation? Yes, I saw that. I saw that early on, that after a year or so, that was probably going to be the case. And that's the case because the last one was done in 2007, which is 18 years.
Well, that was my question.
Yeah.
Couldn't that have been done back when the problem was first
No,
recognized?
I don't think it could have been done back then. I think we could have sped up the process of doing it, but we're doing it now. The RFP's in the county administrator's hands. It's already been written. I wrote it with Julie from purchasing, and that's in the county administrator's hands. It's already done. Yeah. sure.
Wouldn't that be something that we need to look at, though, and make that
Well,
decision?
it's a process. I've never done one. It's a process of that. Julie finished it. She gives it to the county administrator. County administrator will give it back to me, and then I will bring it to you, to give to you for final approval. That's the process of that happening.
It is.
Of course you will look at it. Of course you will look at it. But, yeah, there are things we need to fix. That we've done a yeoman's job in the things that we have fixed with the people we have. But you have to understand is that this is labor intensive, okay? You need people in the office or in the field to do certain things. And if you don't have those people, then those things really can't get done. You have to do whatever you can do to make sure that the work still gets done. Notices still went out on time, May 15th. Appeals were done. Digest was submitted on time. I can understand if we had a tax collection order. Okay, and that letter that you're talking about, sure, we get 3 years to fix those PRD and CODs, and we're very close. And those are going to be fixed with the price per square foot going up where it needs to be. But we have to do analysis first to see where that number should be, and then we bring that number to you with the analysis and say, here's the analysis, here's where it should be, okay? Please approve it, and then I'm going to show you another ratio, which we have a test year out there, which we've been making changes in to make sure that the new price per square foot brings the ratio up to where it should be. But let's be clear, I only have certain resources to figure out what the ratio could be. That's my computer system, okay? And if my computer system says X, and the Department of Audits and Accounts takes other sales, a sample of sales which are low, and says Y, I have no control over what samples they take. None. So what they have said is the price per square foot has to go up faster and higher. Got it. We understand that. Okay? So we went from 48 to 60. Okay?
And they say go to 120.
No,
And we went to
they don't tell,
68.
no, they don't tell you what number to go to. They say these sales are in this range. Department of Revenue is not going to tell you what number to go to. That's a liability issue. They're not going to tell you that.
That's the recommended,
No, it's not.
okay.
No, it's not. So we're at, in our test year right now, we're at 110. And we have to see how that affects current sales, previous sales, and where those numbers fall. It's a whole process that we have to look at before we bring it to you and say, here's the evidence of where the price per square foot should be.
So what is different in your answer today than in last year's meeting and the commissioners' meetings and meetings before that and the year before that? Because if the sales ratios are not corrected this year, third year in a row, my understanding is we're subjected to fines. You can shake your head no. I don't make up the rules. I don't make
No,
up
that's
the
not it.
statute or anything else. But I feel like I'm living Groundhog Day from hearing you now, from hearing you 2 weeks ago, and from every meeting that I watched and rewatched and the minutes I read. I hear we're working on it, we're fixing it, we're doing it. This board is charged with ensuring that it's done.
Sure, sure. And we're going to bring it to you. But there's a time period of us working on it, and then there's a time period where I bring it to you to say, okay, this is the final product of what we're working on. It's not done in a vacuum like that. That's not how it's done. There are years that we have to look at. There are price per square foots we have to look at. the median, the mean of those years, okay? We have to see how that new price per square foot operates with the new ratio that comes out of it. It's a whole process of what happens. And then we bring it to you. Now, as I told you today in your email, May 1st is when you approve the notice of assessments. Your May meeting is when you approve the notice of assessments. Those are the assessments that go out to all taxpayers, plus all the changes. So we are still working in files between now and probably probably now before the April meeting, we will bring it to you and say, here's what we've done. But we're still working in it, but we're doing that, plus we're doing all the new construction that we need to do, all the new permits that we need to do, okay? While being short. So we're doing, I think, yeoman's work with what we have to work with. Is it optimal? Is it perfect? No, it's not. But we're working every day trying to make things better with what we have to work with. But if you get me two new people, okay, 2 new appraisers, and then I could send them the courses, it takes 2 to 4 years to train a person, okay? I just can't take someone off the street and put them in to do this type of work. That's not how it works. It takes 2 to 4 years. And we're doing what we have to do to make things better. But like I said, I look at the wins. I don't look at what you call losses. We gave the county 1.9 million in '23.
Explain to me how you gave the county 1.9 million.
New
How
county
did you give the county the
It's
money?
new county revenue.
But if that revenue wasn't it had a uniformity issue, that's not how.
It's 1.9 million. It's every year.
Could I say something, Mr. George, excuse me?
Sure.
You know, I kind of felt like I was an inanimate object here from the chair because she didn't defer to me what I said. I can say what I said myself. When you referred to, I guess, a videotape or whatever, he said, Mr. Andrews said this. I think you were just privy to a small video recording of the number of meetings for last year. I don't think they started video until the last quarter. So you're not privy to what my mindset was or what my, thoughts were in responding to the question. And I think that was unfair. Because there are conversations that occur from one meeting to another meeting. So to clarify, if you allow me to speak for myself, instead of you interpreting what I said, my concern was, and it was erroneous, that I understand how wind gap works to a certain degree. And I asked the question, could you just plug in a number, a square footage number, and it just spit out, what the appraised value is? And the response I got from Mr. George was that would be somewhat problematic because that would make properties adjust that didn't need to be adjusted because sales had exceeded beyond the norm of properties being normally increasing in value. The other part is talking about the staffing. We had been made aware of the staffing when I said we, the board at the time, and I had a conversation with Ms. Andrea. I even offered her, I said, don't you want to come and work part-time to help out? She said she was retired. Because we had recognized, again, the board that was here, Ms. Cheryl, that there was a problem. So I don't know, again, just like you not aware of some of the terminology that she is, I don't know all these things about exactly how it is, how they come about these things. But Andrea is, okay? And I rely, just like any board, even the Board of Commissioners, they rely on their department heads and their staff to be competent to report back to them. And yes, you have a responsibility of a board as oversight, and we do have a responsibility, just like reciprocating or comparing to the Board of Commissioners, to oversight all the departments within the commission of the county of Jones. But I would dare say that the commissioners know all of the intricate operations of every department. And for you to make the assumption that board members have that ultimate responsibility, I think is unfair. Because I'm just on the Board of Tax Assessors. I'm not an appraiser. Andrea is, she can speak to it. That's why she's voicing it, because he don't know. And you probably know some, but just limited. So I'm gonna listen to her. She's got more experience. Do that make me incompetent? If you want to use that terminology, maybe, but it comes with a caveat to it. So I don't know where we're going with all this, backwards and forward. But again, I don't know if it's a performance for the audience or whatever, but I would really appreciate if we get to the meat of it and move on. Because, listen, if you don't like Mr. George, you have that prerogative. And you do what you got to do. But I don't think it's proper, and I think it's disrespectful for you or anyone to disrespect an employee, whether it's Mr. George or anyone else, with a litany of questions in an attack mode. That's my comment.
Okay. Well, when I asked you about Mr. Andrews correcting you about the tables, that was to make the point that he was correct in that the table adjustment, the mass appraisal, is the way of making adjustments, not the 9,400. And the reason that we're here, if we are getting to the meat, which I think we are anyway, is that this board's been dealing with it now for at least a year. Everything that has been said was that you cannot act, no action should be taken, that it's irresponsible to take it until the state completed their evaluation. They completed it, we were given a report. I went over what our office's obligations are, the board's obligations are, Mr. George's obligations are, and what the findings are in summary of that report. So, if you want to share what the board's plan was when that report was received, then I'm receptive to it.
Well, let me just say this, Madam Chair. This ship had left the dock long before Tim Andrews came on the board, long before you came on the board. And the operation of that office, for all practical purposes, was operated in concert with whatever rules and regulations are there. Okay? This peer review brought out things that needed to be adjusted or incorrect. I mean, we didn't know, I didn't know. We had a staff member doing the minutes, but then it was brought about to our attention before the peer review that it had to be an appraiser to do the minutes. The other actions that were carried on in this board, we didn't have legal counsel here. Now we have legal counsel here because it was never problematic. Never. Again, we were required to go to training sessions that we went to, and the information we received there obviously isn't all inclusive of all this information in this peer review. It comes in increments as you subscribe to the training. And as you become more enlightened, then your ability to serve becomes a lot more effective. But just to sit here and I'm honest with myself, to state that I'm all knowledgeable of the operation would be a lie. And I think that would be the lie for everybody except for Ms. Andrea there, or.
I don't know everything either.
Yeah, see, I don't know all this stuff.
Well, I don't
But I'm
know
not
that
gonna sit
anybody
here
said that.
like a king on the throne casting net on my subjects that I know. So we look for the information from the chief appraiser, who has a classification of, 4? And look for him for direction. There are other appraisers in there that are 2s and 3s that have offered themselves to know more than the chief appraiser, but is not reflective in their status and their qualifications. So who do you rely on for the information? The chief appraiser. That's where I stand. But again, the more you get involved with this, at least the more I get involved with this, it's a lot of moving wheels in the operation of a tax assessor's office. But at the end of the day, and I've stated it for the record, that the Board of Tax Assessors should work in concert with the Board of Commissioners to ensure that they can collect the necessary revenue and funds to provide for the citizens of Jones County. Now, whether that's been occurring, not on my watch, because I've tried to work in concert with the Board of Commissioners, but right now, they sitting back there now, like a buzzard sitting on a fence. I've never seen this before in my life, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not privy to a lot of people intimidating me. Like I told you before, you bark at me, I'm gonna bark back. So again, the other members, the 2 members that were here, they fed into the intimidation, which was unfair, because they were doing the best they could what they had to work. And I don't think this whole circus is fair. I mean, when we have meetings, don't know how to show up. I guess these people got personal phone calls to come down here. I don't know. Did anybody get a call?
Point of order, Mr.
Well, I'm
Andrews,
just
that is
saying.
enough.
Well, you asked me, you said open the talk.
Point of order. Mr. George, we are at an impasse, as I see it, and this board can correct me. Mr. Rutledge, you've been quiet. Ms. Riley, Ms. Morgan, you've joined us. And I'm sorry, I failed to mention that you were going to be late. You did tell us in advance. That it doesn't matter. No one on this board, I've said it, I'll say it again. I'm not an expert. Everything I've said is per the state. They're the ones that make the rules. There's no Lee Stanford making this determination. It is the state. If the board has to rely on the expertise of someone, but that person, per the state, is not following the rules, and the consequence is that the county is suffering financially, and that the citizens are not being assessed fairly, then where are we?
Well, the county's not losing money, first of all. They're not losing money.
What about the fairness aspect?
How you determine the fairness, there are certain ways to determine that. But the number one way to determine fairness is, have you overvalued people? If you did, we would have 1,000 appeals.
We've addressed this before. If you've undervalued, then you wouldn't have appeals.
Sure, but as I explained to you about this before, what you try to do is gradually go up. You don't go from 0 to 100 in 1 year. I tried to explain that to you because that 1 year could be a trend. And after that 1 year, it could fall. So you look at 2 to 3 years of information before you make a determination. That's what we're doing. That's what we've done. And you will see that when we bring you the analysis that we've been doing for the last 3 years. And it will show you what the last 3-year price per square foot should be. And that's why it's at 60 now. We're looking at 110. And our analysis says 110. And then our ratio says it's 38% in our test year. So we've been making corrections. I can understand if we were sitting on our hands doing nothing, but we have been making corrections. And that's what we're tasked to do, is make corrections to make it equitable and fair, and that's what we've been doing. But we have to do it in a systematic process as far as looking at analysis of sales over a couple of years. But as I told you before, it takes people to do that. You just don't hit a button and all that comes up. That's not how it works, okay? That's not how it works. And then you have to make sure staff is trained up to do those things, okay? And that's what we're trying to do.
With regard to your staff, you told us when you responded to the, or when you sent us that performance review,
Right.
that there weren't even job descriptions in place when you started.
That's
You had to
correct.
create all of those from the ground up,
That's
correct?
correct. That's correct.
So
what does that tell you?
Well, I'll tell you what it tells me. It astonished me when I requested personnel records and started looking at the dates on them, and what I received with your records was application or email, whatever, and the job offer, and a job description. And it had on there revised August of 16. And I thought that was odd since you were not hired until after then, so I went back and I looked. And there were job descriptions back from 2010, and in fact, those are the same job descriptions as what were provided by you with the performance evaluations. So there were job
I
descriptions.
didn't have job descriptions when I came here. I asked for them. I didn't get any.
So you created some that were just identical to what the county already
I
had?
don't know what was done before because I didn't see what was done before. All I did was create job descriptions because I didn't have any when I came here. Now, I don't know what somebody had in 2010 or 2011. When I came here, I asked for job descriptions. I got none. So I don't know what you want me to tell you. So that tells me if you were in my situation and you asked for it and it wasn't provided to you, then it wasn't there. Just like there wasn't exemption questionnaires.
But they're the exact same job
I don't
descriptions?
know that.
Okay.
Who are we talking about?
Do y'all have anything to add or ask? Ms. Morgan?
I got one thing, Mr. Chair, because you keep deferring to other people with items on the agenda, so, and obviously, others may know what we're doing tonight, because I'm not privy to it. And that's self-evident, because you deferred to Mr. Gibson on 2 items to take, and I guess he's been properly briefed on what items on the agenda, so I'm just trying to figure out where we're going from here, so,
Mr. Rutledge put those 2 items on the agenda, and just like the last meeting, I deferred to the person who put it on the agenda, and I specified when I had put them on the agenda.
we wasn't aware that, I wasn't aware, it's never been done in the past, so, that we would set the agenda is usually set by the chief appraiser, so I'm just saying that in reference, if others are pretty much well versed on where we headed, could you please allow, Sherry, you been briefed on it? So where we going with this, because obviously, it appears some people are privy to information that we aren't, or at least I'm not,
Well, I think that's a
And-
pretty broad leap to say Mr. Rutledge put an item on the agenda, and because of that, that they somehow know what
All right,
is
you want me to-
happening
want me
on
to expand
another
upon it?
item. No,
Well,
I
could I
don't.
just say this? Okay, Mr. Rutledge put something on the agenda, and the only person other than myself that offered some discussion to it, because everybody else already knew the answer. So, I didn't understand that. It went with a motion and a second, and until I got this on the, on my email, that's the first time I heard of it. So I was prepared to discuss it today, okay? But obviously, others already were privy to the information prior to the meeting. Maybe I'm misinterpreting things.
Well,
So all I'm asking now going forward, is there something I need to know now before I sit here and go through this orchestrated meeting that I can make myself prepared to discuss, or so that I won't be naive or misinformed?
I think the agenda was self-explanatory. It had approval of adding a prayer and pledge, and approval of changing the minutes from 2 to 10. There's just self-explanatory. As far as where we're going, I stated all of that previously.
So is your position now, you will contact members and ask them they want to add or change items or policies on the agenda?
I'll say
I
legally,
contacted the
you-
chairman
as,
to add what I wanted to add.
as board
Just-
members, you all can request anything that you want on the agenda to be added to the agenda.
All right, so what channel
Any of
should,
the
what's the
5 of you.
logistics of it? So what should it go through?
You would request it through the chairperson, and she
Okay.
would then request it to whoever drafts the agenda.
Right.
But
And-
anything that you all would like added, you certainly can be added. This is your meeting.
So
your
is there
agenda.
anything else a person here has added that I'm not aware of? See, that's what I'm getting at, Ms. Bob. I wasn't aware that there was some, Mr.
Well, it doesn't
item.
list who adds the item, but.
I know, but she privy to who it is, so I was just asking, before we go too far,
Well, 'cause
what other items are being added
it's been
at the
rec-
pleasure of
It
the
goes
board?
through the chairperson, so she's gonna know. So if you added an item, she would know that you had added it to the agenda because you've asked her to add it to the agenda.
Okay. I got that.
But any of the 5 of you can add an item to the agenda.
I got that.
Yes, sir.
I'm just asking going, till we get to the end of this, is there anything other board members have added?
Well, there's an agenda. There's nothing, if something gets added that's not on the printed agenda, then I'll know it when you know it because I'm going by that agenda.
Can I just add one more thing? I need to clear something out. There's a certain taxpayer talked about public utilities and whatnot, lost revenue. Well, maybe he doesn't know, maybe you don't know, that we don't do public utilities. We don't value public utilities. Department of Revenue values utilities, not us. It just comes to us with a certain value that we accept. We don't value public utilities. And also you should know, public utilities go up 10 million one year, go down 10 million one year. And we have nothing to do with that. That's what's reported to the state. And the state sends us those figures. So I just wanted to clear that up, that we have nothing to do with public utility values that come in every year.
Correct.
That's all.
And no one said anything about assessing the values, but the state report found on page 115
The
to
ratio has
116.
everything to do with it.
The ratio does affect it, but I wanted to clear that up just to say that I don't think these people knew that. We don't value them.
Right, but when the county is
Right.
not within the proper sales
That's correct.
ratio, then you cannot
That's
collect
correct. That's
the
correct.
full percentage
That's
from
correct.
the
That's
utilities.
correct. That's correct, but that's covered with the other revenue that we've provided. That's all I wanted to clear up.
For the members of the office, I know that you were on the agenda and we put your names all on here. I want to say, having gone through everything, I've looked at anything available to us, and I have dealt with members of the office, Miss Lynette, Miss Tanisha in particular, just handling my own business, and the two of them have always been pure gems. It's clear from dealing with them personally over the years and talking to them that they care deeply about their job and the county. I've not had the benefit of meeting Miss Donna or Mr. Tommy. I have spoken with Bill and Kim. I think that everyone in that office wants to see the job to get done. No one wants to be in a workplace that has any strife or issues. And if there is something that the members of the office want to tell us, we'll hear it. If you have anything regarding the performance review, if you've read the review, I assume that the staff got the report. I guess I should have checked. Was that provided to staff? So anyone that's listed, any personnel, you sure don't have to, but we are happy to hear from any of the office staff. Do you want to go in order? Well,
So let me ask you this. Hear from them about what?
I just said anything they want to tell us that we need to know about the office.
This is just from Tony's statements here. He said,
Okay, let me interject something here, okay? I thought you said from office staff, not directed at any individual, so from a personal standpoint. Is that what we're here to do?
No, sir. I just said I was willing to hear anything that they wanted to tell us about the office, the performance evaluation, that we want them to do well. We know there's strife in the office, and that we're here to listen to anything they have to say. I believe the previous board did the same thing, both in an open meeting and an executive session. So I'm asking them to do it now in the open meeting.
Well, the board before requested staff to give a personal effect of what their work environment, they felt in their work environment. Not to go in and attack any fellow worker. Because in my opinion, that just creates more discourse within the office. And our attempt was try to correct or ratify whatever, or correct any tensions in the office. Now, if this is going to be a situation where staff gets at the podium and start throwing stones at fellow employees, I think that's counterproductive to what I feel I should be doing, because these people got to try to maintain a fair work environment, because that's their livelihood. So that's what I'm saying is these comments should be prefaced on what this individual has to say from his perspective, but not say things that are egregious to a fellow coworker, because that's just going to open up a big wad of problems.
I understand. I'm not going to limit anything you want to say. I would ask that you demonstrate professionalism and courtesy and befitting to the county and your coworkers, please, sir.
yes, ma'am. These are just some things I jotted down, listening to Tony right now. He said all the grades have been fixed. They haven't. He may have fixed the grades that were examples in the study. And as far as placing grades on property, we always went through him, did we not, Andrea? That's how we got in this mess. When Tony came, H. Brian Jackson was building a lot of houses over in Nature's Walk. Using the correct grade, we did not come up with the right numbers. Andrea went to him, I went to him, Emery went to him. We told him what we thought was right. We needed to raise the land values in there. You should normally have a 20-80 ratio, 20% land, 80% house. Tony told us, y'all need to learn a new way to grade houses. That's where the grading got out of whack. These were 120, 130 grade houses. We started putting them at 150, 160. That's been borne out in the report. Also, in 2023, when we did the Department of Audits and that came down, Lee Thomas told us multiple times the counties who were not in trouble were all at $120 a square foot. It's rare for anyone from the state to tell you something like that. Usually they will tell you, ask you to reference the book, or that's something your board needs to settle. Lee went out of his way to tell us at least 4 or 5 times that that's what we needed to do. He said 120. This is the man who is the head of Department of Audits and Accounts. He said 120. We went from 40 to 60. Also, when he says that he gave the county $1.2 million, that is a chimera. It's not an accurate number. Anything we do that is an addition, like a new house, new improvement, anything like that, we write that down. If a house burns, we don't add that. Am I right, Andrea? Anything that's at that number he brings up here and gives every year, it's a farce, because you can't bring a balance sheet up if you only put additions on there. You can't say I gave them $1.2 million when you don't take in any depreciation or anything like that off. And he said he's fixed most everything. If he'd fixed everything, we wouldn't need a revow. It's that simple. And the public utilities, you've already brought that up. They do go up and down and all that, but when we're below 40, or when we're below 36, like the last couple of years, we had the 32.9, then this year we had the 31.26, they bumped it up a couple of points, but still, they pay at that rate. They don't pay at the 40%, so yes, we did lose money there. These are just a few points I had. There are some others, but I felt this needed to be addressed. Thank you.
Could I ask them something? Is it
Certainly.
open? So, Mr. Goodman, what's your status, your classification?
I'm an appraiser too.
Okay. Do you have any aspirations for getting a higher classification?
Yeah, I've asked for that many times and Tony wouldn't send me to the class.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd be an appraiser 3.
So, one other question for the record. And I recall you coming in a meeting and saying this, that you were not in agreement when Mr. George was hired. Is that a true fact?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Just a simple yes or no would be fine.
Given his past record, I did not think he was the person for here. He also
That's
said-
enough, that's enough, that's all I want.
No, sir, he can explain his
finish.
answer.
He can finish what he's gonna say.
Wait a minute. I asked a question, I know what I want to hear. So are you all moderating this now? I mean, I'm just,
it's not
I don't
fair.
understand. All I asked was a question, yes or no. Now, if I wanted to elaborate it on, don't you think I got enough, don't I have enough authority to do that without going through you or you?
But
But nothing. I'm just asking.
you asked
don't-
him a question, though.
I asked him a question, yes or no, and that's what I asked.
We want to hear his answer.
See? See, that's the problem now. All we doing is a
Point of
performance.
order, point
All
of
we
order.
doing is a performance
Point
here.
of order.
And you gonna make us
Mr.
the scapegoat
Andrews,
as a
point of
performer.
order.
It is a point of order, because I asked for a direct answer, and that's all. And I was corrected by 2 people that I don't correct you when you asked the question. You asked all kinds of questions.
He was
And
trying to
I have
complete
never
his
corrected you.
answer. You weren't being corrected. He was told he could finish his answer and explain it.
I asked you, could I ask him a question? That's what you, and you said, sure. And I asked him a question. And that was it. And I directed him how I wanted the question to be answered.
Well, that's the problem. Mr.
May I
Goodman, may
expound
you
on
please,
that?
will you please explain to me what you
Okay,
were
the
going to say?
reason that we wrote that letter
And I do have the letter, and I will make it part of the
is
record.
we had,
Give me 1 second. I have the letter for the record, and it is signed by Andrea Riley, Emery Crumbly, Kim Adams, Bill Goodman, Jennifer Gay, and Lynette Jones that expressed concern by all of the staff at the time with Mr. George's hiring. That's what's being referred to,
And that letter was presented to whom?
to that board at the time.
Can you please, why am I feeling that, I mean, people just won't let me ask a question to the people I'm directing it to? And that was directed to the board, right?
Yes.
At that time. And who was on that board, you have an idea?
I don't know, but my understanding is the chair,
Don Turner.
Don,
Don and Rose Holder.
right.
Hoyt
and-
Brown,
And so at that
Geraldine,
time,
and Mary.
that board had the authority to hire Mr. George, right?
Yes,
At the opposition of the persons, I guess what that letter says, correct?
they expressed
So
concern.
I would say, for the record, based on that letter, then those persons on that list has a prejudice against Mr. George by record. So I don't see how their information would be fair and clear without prejudice against, especially when they wrote a letter and did not support his hiring on the first day.
The truth is not prejudicial.
I don't need to be lectured by an appraisal too,
Fine.
okay? That I don't need. And
Mr.
for a point of order, Chair, I hope you hold order as you hold with me with the employee.
Yeah, is there anything else to add
Yes.
substantive
At
to
that
this?
time-
And specifically maybe about the office staff? The staff has got to work together
Yes, ma'am, I understand that.
in the same
I've been here
office.
almost 12 years, and I've always worked with everyone.
Are you able to work with everyone moving forward?
Yes, ma'am, I intend to. One thing I would like to say, because it referenced me in this, when I came up here September 3rd, I told about writing that, being a part of that letter. We did that, and at that time, we referenced Mr. George and his deal in Fulton and in DC. He got up here September 5th and said, didn't happen in Fulton. He was cleared. Then why isn't he still in Fulton? He said, didn't happen in DC. They were trying to win a Pulitzer Prize. He was cleared. If he was cleared, why isn't he still in DC? He has a track record.
Let's,
That goes towards prejudice against their superior. Now, again, there's animosity and he's not denying it, so
thank
what do
you.
you want me to do with that?
Thank you.
We can address it.
Well,
Is there any other staff that wishes to speak? Tell us anything. You certainly don't have to. Yes, ma'am, Miss Lynette.
I don't know exactly what you want me to say. I can give you information. I think I am the only one in that office that knows everything everybody has said in that office. To piggyback off that letter, I signed that letter. Yes, I did. At that time, we didn't know anything about Tony. We're only going by what Kim found off the internet. She printed that off. She presented that to the board. Me just starting, I was new. I had started August of that year, of 2016. And I signed the letter because I'm going along with what everybody else want to do. After I met Tony, people try to put this as he's such a bad person to work with. He's not. I haven't had any problems. I just want to clarify that. And again, I don't, and I know you said you don't want to talk about staff members, but there's a lot of things that I can say that would embarrass everybody in that office. But I don't say it. A lot of the things that are being said is wrong. They're the appraisers. Tony had faith enough in them to do their work. I mean, what more can you ask for? He's not a micromanager. He lets you do your work, from my understanding. You know, I'm sorry I'm getting emotional because I'm tired. I'm tired of disrespect. Because you got people that don't know anything that we do in that office coming up here saying things that is not true. You got the news media saying things that are not true. You got newspaper writing stuff that is not true. What are we supposed to do? We're tired. And as far as that peer review, my honest opinion, that peer review is biased because a certain tax assessor staff member was in those people's face every chance that they could get. And I personally came down here and talked to Mr. Kenny because I felt as though this peer review was going to be biased. And he assured me, and he even told me that he got on to his staff members because he didn't want to hear anything about what the personal stuff that was going on in that office.
Is this Kenny Colson?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He didn't want to hear. That's not what they was there for. But apparently in that peer review, they got right up in there about that. Now, the communication thing about with the office, I don't understand where that came from. Only office that we really communicate with is the tax commissioner's office. I've never heard anything being bad about that. We don't communicate with any other offices in this building except maybe planning and zoning and maybe finance. But that's not like a everyday thing. We don't communicate like that. Now, I don't know if people or staff member outside the office going to different offices and talking, which cause people to do, to say things like that, then I don't know. As for Tony, if you come into our office, majority of the time, Tony's in his office. He doesn't roam the hallways. He doesn't go to the other offices. So how is that the communication bad? It's a lot of things in that peer review that is not true. I don't know what they did. It's like they copy and paste somebody else's peer review. Like I don't understand it. It's just been disrespectful. The board has been disrespected. Mr. Andrews, Ms. Cheryl, they've been disrespected. And if you go back and look at the November 18th meeting, you can listen to how Bill talked to Mr. Andrews. That was so disrespectful. You don't talk to anybody like that. And I don't know what else to say. It's rough. It's rough, and it's not fair to me. It's not fair to Tanisha or Tommy Lee. It's not fair to Tony. Nobody has stepped up to try to protect us. Nobody has said anything. Nobody has told these taxpayers that come up here and don't talk about stuff that they don't know nothing about. to just let them do their job. They know what they're doing. My coworker was in tears because of the words that Mickey Parker said. That girl does her job well, and she. So, the disrespect of certain staff members, I have to say it. They don't respect the authority. There have been it's just unbelievable how this has gone and just blown up. I do believe that there were outside influences for this to start. I don't know how I can prove it, but that is what I believe. I'll say this right here. It seems as though the drama that does happen in our office happens to be always directed with the two staff members who are not in our office now. So I will put that as that. And again, if I wanted to tell everything, I can. And I don't think that would be appropriate to let you know all of the things that have been said and done in that office. Things have been said and done before even Mr. George even came. So, you know, that's what I wanted to say. Is there any questions y'all want to ask me?
I told the Board of Commissioners when I interviewed for this position that no one goes into any kind of public service or takes a public job to get rich.
Exactly.
What you're doing is a service, and you've always been so kind. I've really just dealt with you and Miss Tanisha, and you both have been. So I know you do your job. I know you don't want this drama. I don't want this drama.
Exactly.
This is, reality TV could come park a van in Jones County right now, and that has to end.
Exactly.
And any type of unprofessionalism, disrespectful conduct, that is going to end if I'm having to sit here. Just as we're responsible for making sure that the tax digest is fair and equitable, the staff members should treat each other, their superiors, the customers, anyone else the same, and with that
Exactly.
respect.
Exactly. I mean, it is, I mean, and when I say things like the respect for authority, I mean, I know there was a couple of times Tony asked the staff to stop talking about politics in the office. The first time was because a taxpayer came in and heard them, and they didn't like it, so he asked them to stop. They did not stop. They continued to talk about politics. He asked them a second time to stop. They continued to talk about politics. It's like you don't respect his authority. And that's, in my eyes, that's how I feel about that. Now, as far as classes, I will say this right here. Every time we have a meeting back there in Tony's office, he will ask us, is there a class y'all want to go to? That's the opportunity right there. You know, it's,
May I ask a question? Thank you for your passion, and I'm sorry you haven't. But how safe do you feel? Is there a question of safety?
as of right
Because
now,
I hear something in you.
as of right now, as the way the office is right now, I feel safe.
Great.
I feel safe.
Oh, I'm sorry, but
as of right now, I feel safe. After October, I did not feel safe to be in that office with certain staff members. Now, I provided a letter stating that, and I stand by that. And I've talked to a certain staff member long enough to know their actions. And this is part of their actions. A staff member who said that they're not loyal to Tony. They said that. A staff member who rejoices at the downfall of somebody else. That's not, why would you want to work with somebody like that?
Can I ask you a question?
You sure
y'all,
can.
and I could have asked Mr. George, do y'all receive professionalism training?
No.
Do you think some leadership, professionalism training, ethical training would be helpful for the office? Or
Probably so.
what kind of training would be helpful? And I
Probably
would
some.
say, for
Yeah.
you and Tanisha, I would love to see y'all go back to the assessor school or appraiser school.
I
would
you
love
know,
to see y'all do that. So
we-
I'm not talking about that training.
Right.
That's kind of a given.
And I understand that, but, and we've talked about this with Tony. As me and her say, that class that we took is just like, we got to just take a breather for a minute. Now we have talked to Tony about taking deed classes because that's mainly what we do in that office.
Mm-hmm.
But those classes are so far away, and it's so hard to get into a class. And to be quite honest with you, I would love to take that class again, but these events that has happened, I don't want to take that class because having to deal with these taxpayers and some of the board of commissioners, that's not even worth it. I continue to do the deeds, and I really do think our staff is owed an apology for all the stuff that we've been going through.
I definitely think
You
that
know.
you're owed an apology in general. I cannot apologize on behalf of something I wasn't a part of, but
I
no
understand
one
that.
deserves. I don't want to be part of it in my office. Like I said, the drama has no place. Do want to ask: Did these complaints and some of the conduct that you've shared that was offensive to you and unacceptable, the disrespectful behavior that you mentioned, do you know if anybody was ever written up? Was the office ever addressed as a whole?
No.
Okay.
The disrespectfulness is to me, it's not like Tony never really said anything or did anything to anybody. If we needed time off, we were able to get time off. I mean, to be honest with you, we were a family in that office. And we had two people that just kind of betrayed that trust. How can you trust somebody that's going to, sometimes they even came up here and lied. How you going to trust somebody? If I got an issue with something, how can I go to that person and ask them a question about their issue? And what if they tell me a lie to make me look bad? Because to be honest with you, this whole thing looks like that's what they're trying to do. In my opinion. That's just my opinion. So how can I trust those individuals to help me with work? Or if I have a question about something? That trust is broken. It's just like a mirror. You break a mirror, you put it back together, you can still see the cracks in it. So how do you move forward from that?
I think that, and I'm flying way high, this is a view, obviously not from your office, I think y'all were a family from the stories I've been told, and I've been told an awful lot of them, and very, very kind acts that you've shown each other. And I think that, you know, we can't choose our coworkers any more than we can choose our family members. And if there's broken trust, just like a broken marriage, you make the decision, is this salvageable? Do I want to put in the effort to fix it? Or am I getting out of it? And, you know, everyone's going to have to be willing to either say, I'm willing to work on it, or at least do my job, and just do my job and be professional and kind to everyone else. And I'll, you know, maybe things repair down the road. You know, I don't know, frankly, what this board can possibly do to fix relationships. Those can't be forced.
No, and I'm not asking you to fix
No,
it.
I know you're not.
Yeah.
I'm just making the observation. No one can fix personal relationships.
Right.
But I am sorry for you, because I've watched and listened to you in prior meetings, and it broke my heart, frankly, and it's not fair, and it's, you know, and I'm sorry for that. And I do thank you for being willing to speak.
And I just want to say, you know, I love you. I was there when you were hired, and you've always done a good job, and we've always got along. And I just want to thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
We had the personnel listed in order, and I guess that's all that wants to speak from the office. Ms. Tanisha.
I have to agree with what Lynette, a lot of what Lynette said. Far as like the training, the classes, I start with like the peer review. Like, far as my part of doing it, like it mentions something in there about far as the homesteads. So I have no idea of what they could possibly be talking about. I mean, I do the math calculations from the 1040 that the taxpayer provides to me. I did go to Brian, and I did get the new numbers of which each homestead would be saving on what's the max limit. And I do want to be clear, because since all of this stuff has been starting, we've had, especially with the articles in the newspaper, from this meeting, the commissioners meeting, we've had a lot of taxpayers. The biggest complaint they're coming in there is the elderly are talking about the school taxes. Jones County don't do that. We don't exempt 65 years and older from paying school taxes. The homestead just helps reduces it. You have other counties that have adopted a homestead to where once they turn 65 or whatever, they don't pay school taxes. It's not like that here. And I tell people all the time, if it was anything I could do, I would help my grandmother. I got a 98-year-old grandmother who pays over $2,000 in taxes. She lives in Hatter. If it was anything I could do, I would clearly help my grandmama. But you have people, this Mickey Parker, and I'm going to say his name, he came in here this last meeting, and he said the 65 and older, the senior citizens in this county, I'm not doing anything wrong. I just use the information that's given to me. It's nothing that I'm doing. You have taxpayers that come here, elderly women or men, who cry at our counter because their spouse has passed away and they're the one that used to handle the bills, and they're lost. They don't know what to do. They don't even know what information to give. I have called people's daughters, sisters, to get information. I do everything I can to help these people. I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm not trying to hurt nobody. And Trey, you know this.
I know. And I think, Tanisha, what they were talking about in the review, there's a factor and there's the calculation that the homestead is done with. That changes, and I don't know if it's emailed to Tony, it should be done just like the NADA. And, you know, that should change, and I guess there's a date you need to be looking for to get that information. And
Well,
and I
the
know you-
limit goes up, like, the limit
Right.
is like $96,000, I think $432 this year. That's the maximum amount that they giving in Social Security. I key that in. I change that number. When I go in the resident and I click the button, local and state. If it's 61 and older, it's just local. When it comes to 65 and older, I click local and state. That's what I do. I put the code in, that's it.
but
That is it.
is
And-
the table being changed with the correct
Okay,
factors?
so a standard homestead, and this is what I brought these examples. A standard homestead, you're gonna fill out this form here. You're gonna fill out the same form for 65 and older. At that time, you just gotta bring your income. If you're 65 and the home is just in your name, if you're married, your husband still has to sign this form. I have to have a copy of their driver's license. Everything has to reflect that it's based off your household income. Once you turn 62, you come in and you fill out this smaller form. That's it. I had a taxpayer that came last week who has an L4, but she said that she was told that she could be exempt from the school taxes. So she brought this paper in. I said, ma'am, this is for 62. You're saving the max amount that you can already get right now. You already have the max. The only thing that is going to beat you out is the disabled veteran homestead. And even with the disabled veteran homestead, just because you're a disabled veteran doesn't mean you're exempt from taxes. It all depends on the value. That's the issue that we get. A lot of people say that because they're disabled veteran, they don't pay taxes. That's not true.
Right.
I've got with Brian on that too. If I tell you now, if you got a home and land that's valued at $299,000, $280,000, you're gonna pay taxes, whether you're a disabled veteran or not. You're still gonna pay. It's nothing that I could do. It's nothing in the office that is nothing. I just don't get what they're saying. Then with the training, as far as the training go, again, I have to agree with Lynette on that. The meetings, Tony do ask us, is there anything that, any classes that, you know, he have asked everybody when you was there as well, any classes that you want to take. Everybody go around and they say what classes. Me and Lynette is like, we're the last ones. I mean, the appraisers is the one that has to stay up on the hours. I think we only get, what, $10,000 for training? By the time, if the appraisers go to class, if y'all go to caveat or wherever, that money is gone. It's nothing for me, and we can't take a class unless everybody else is caught up.
Well, I will say.
But he has mentioned it to us, but the peer review, far as Angel, who I was talking to, she told me, she asked me what my job was. I told her about I was helping with car appeals. She told me I don't need to be doing car appeals. That's appraiser work. I started doing car appeals when Emory left to help Bill with car appeals. I know how to do it, and to be honest, when I think about it, I'm not actually putting a price on because I always go to appraiser, whether it was Andrea, where it was Kim, Tony, or Bill, to get to find a number. They tell me to find a number, I just key it in. I know how to do the research, but I show them the paper before I let them choose the number. I don't choose the number, but Angel told me not to do that. She told me she said that, have I thought about doing a deed class since I pulled deeds? They mentioned in a peer review about dress code, about professionalism. We wear uniforms for the most part. I don't get it. We've never been in trouble about our dress code. I just don't understand. They mentioned with Lynette not doing questionnaires. Lynette do the questionnaires. I mail them out. We've been doing questionnaires. I mean, I could go and pull out of the files and show you where there's questionnaires from 2016, 2015, all the way up. I just sent some questionnaires out yesterday.
Do y'all keep copies of them when they get sent out? Or are you just keeping the ones when they come back?
When they come back, she puts them in the system, and it generates what questionnaires are sent out, right? It generates. Like, it's a lot of untruths in that peer review. It's a lot of untruths. It was mentioned the last meeting about the 3-year, about far as the going back doing the properties. I know Bill has done it because he gave me the paper to put on the back of the property record cards. I know that's been done. I do it. He gave it to me. Now, have he gave it to me within the last year? No, he hasn't. But I know that was done. I know that was being done in 2020, 2021. He would give me a stack. Tanisha, I'm sorry, I got something for you. We'll laugh about it. I get them done. They said it wasn't being done. Yes, it is. I did it. It's a lie. It's. I can't. It's. Man. I mean, you don't know what a lad to keep from crying, seriously. This is ridiculous that, I mean, it's like people are giving people information to come in here and attack us. They come in the office. They have the whole thing revolving from the incident on October the 25th. The whole day started because a taxpayer came in there talking about the conversation that was had on September the 3rd. That was our start. To me, it's okay. I don't have to agree with what a person say. I'm not going to lie on them when it comes to their job. But I don't have to agree with you. I can still get along with you. I don't have to agree with you. Just because you don't think the way I think, I'm not going to get mad and not like you. It's just certain conversations do not have to be had in front of everybody, especially if you know they don't agree with you. It's almost like you trying to poke a bear to get a reaction. Like Lynette walked out that day. She got full. It was an inappropriate conversation. But we sit down, we have to take all this stuff all the time. I don't want to run down there and tell Shannon everything. I don't want to be a tell-to-tell. This is not elementary school.
No, it's not.
I don't want to sit up there and tell everything. I don't feel like I should have to. It's ridiculous. I never wanted to go to HR. I never like, even my previous job, you just don't, nobody never wants to go to the HR department. Nobody want to be called over the overhead when I was a supervisor at Home Depot coming to the HR. Ooh, what's wrong with them? What do? I mean, it's just always been a bad look. I never wanted to do that. I don't want to go down there. I don't go down there. I've been here since 2018. I've probably been in Shannon's office 5 times. And it's 2025 now. I don't go down there. I speak to her, talk to her all the time. I just don't feel the need to go down there. I'm not telling on somebody, nitpicking, doing stuff, especially when you know what you're doing. I'm not doing that. It's ridiculous. All of this stuff just been, and it's like we're getting caught up in this crossfire. And I do feel like people, I don't know if I'm being told the truth or not, but I've been told that it is some birds putting stuff in people's ear, making them say stuff. And I think it's true. I can't prove it. I remember Ashley said in the meeting before, she said, stick with facts. I can't prove it. I'm almost certain it's true, but I can't prove it. I wasn't there, but I'm almost certain it's true. But it's just a lot. I feel bad for Donna. Before Donna put in the application, Donna came in that office. She was just talking. She was just so happy. She came in and put in a homestead, and she asked how the environment. She was like, everybody just seems so happy in this building. Me and Lynette told her, come on, you'll love it. We all a family here. You'll love it. I feel awful. When she got arrested, I started crying too. Because if I would have known she would have been arrested, I would have never told her to put in this application. I would have never done that. She has a child that could look at a newspaper from mistruths that's being put in a newspaper. If you go back and pull the camera from that evening, you would see Kim left out of there with a smile on her face. If that was me, and that happened to me, I'm not leaving out there with a smile on my face. I'm banging on Brian's door. Brian was still in there. That office was still in there. Miss Marion, the voters' elections are Marion. She was still there. Miss Vicky. The doors was open. You had 2 officers down there. 2 officers, because there was 2 officers in this building due to voting, due to election. You would have been screaming for her. I would have went down there. None of that happened. Look at the tape. None of it happened. None of it. Her husband, Richie, came up. He was getting ready to go into the office. He seen that the door was closed. He turned around. As soon as he turned around, Kim came. She opened up the door. She said, oh, hey. They walked on off. We walked on to our cars. Got out there to the car. I got in my car. Mindy and Talia was standing right down the outside talking. Kim stood there talking. If I got hit, I'm going to be crowned. I'm just, that's the truth. I don't believe it. And again, we're getting caught up in this crossfire. We are. I spoke at the November 18th meeting. I remember saying on my way home it was raining. I think it was on a Thursday. I was behind her. She stayed, she was driving slow. I remember I was saying that I had stayed back, and I remember making a joke that Bill always say I drive fast. And Drew, you probably heard him saying in the morning that I'm on Speedy Gonzalez coming in the building. So I stayed back, because if I would have went around where she had called the police on and said I'm trying to run her off the road.
I did watch that meeting and listen to all of y'all. I think I watched it twice, just so you know I didn't, and that's why I was referring to Miss Lynette.
So it's just mind-boggling to me. And I I'm just going to get the whole truth out how I feel. I don't know what. A lot of this deals with racism. And I hate to say it. That's what I feel like. I have voiced it to Jason, and I voiced it to Shannon, and I will tell y'all the story too. Okay, as far as Donna is a black woman, the police was called on her. We have a taxpayer, Miss Genevieve Elias, the one on Roberts Road. She can have a very nasty attitude. Yes, she can. She can. She can. I will agree to that. Okay, this particular time, Bill and Kim went down to look at the property for conservation, to renew for Cuba, because she had to look at the property for Cuba. Well, whatever the reason was, they said they couldn't get to the property. They wasn't allowed on it. So they came back. So Emery ended up coming out there. The man, he him and his Genevieve and her boyfriend, they came up there. I know Emery ended up going out there looking at the property. Emery went off the clock. Emery went out the hours. He went out to 5 o'clock to look at their property because Emery and the guy used to work together at Rings. So it was a big issue with that. And I remember Kim saying that I'm not going back out on that property unless I have a officer with me. So my thing is, it seems like when it comes to people of color, the same thing I told them, the police has to get involved. But you have a taxpayer, Barbara Aree, who told Bill she'll kill him. She pulled a gun out on him. Nobody said nothing about calling the police. And this before I came. So it's an issue. It's not that, I mean, that's the truth. Am I lying about the conversation? It's the truth. Andrea, you was there at that time. She said she didn't want to come back out there without the police. Emery went out there. It's the truth. This is ridiculous. So I don't, I mean, yes, we are here to do a job, but I mean, somebody got to do something because, I mean, a lot could get told on us at any given time. And we supposed to get arrested. When Donna when the officer came in there with Donna, I called my husband. He's a retired captain from the sheriff's department. He was the first person I called. Jacob Honeycutt didn't come in there and ask. He came in there making complete demands. Who put that on the window? He didn't say good afternoon, good evening, good morning. He said nothing. Who put that on the window? He didn't have his camera on. Who put that on the window? It wasn't, the picture was already taken out. Who put the picture up on the window? Very aggressive. Very aggressive. He didn't ask a question. And then even with all this, the commissioners, nobody has came out there and asked anything. They haven't asked how we felt. They haven't done anything. Daylon has came and asked. Mr. Kitchens haven't asked. John hasn't asked me. Mr. Chairman hasn't asked. Ms. Vaughn hasn't asked. They haven't asked us anything. Nobody's checking on us. Because we are supposed to get caught up in the crossfire. So when you can't get him, what you gonna do? You gonna come at me? Is Tommy Lee next? Tommy Lee made that, said that to Shannon and Jason. Am I next? You going down the line. It's not fair. It's not fair. Donna brought Kim a birthday cake for her birthday out of her money, her own pocket. We didn't chip in. We didn't even have an idea that Donna was getting Kim a birthday cake. She came out, she said, I got Kim a cake. Come on, let's sing happy birthday to her. The following week, it was Bill's birthday. We chipped in then. Kim was gone on vacation. We got pizzas. We decorated his area with balloons. Then all of a sudden, this comes up. Make it make sense. Me and Bill talked about the game. I love sports. I love football. Going to the high school game. Me and Bill used to see each other all the time. It's Monday morning. Tanisha, what you think about that game? Sometimes I call Bill and Bill to talk on a Friday night about the game. On the phone. It's ridiculous. Since this happened, we haven't been speaking. But again, I don't have to agree with what you do. I don't agree with it. I feel like it was a chain of command. I feel like they should have came to our board first before going before the commissioners. I can't change the way, their opinion is their opinion. I don't have to agree with it. But don't try to sabotage me. And when I say sabotage me, I mean sabotage me because appeals. Let's get on that. Okay, so during appeal season, I put the appeals in the computer. So I create the folder if it goes to BOE or whatever, you know the timeline. Okay, so I take Mr. Nelson, for example, Stella Nelson. His property that he had. They had went before all of this happened. Bill then would ask me every week. I keep it color coded. Tanisha, How many more appeals we got to go? Okay, I got this, such and such in green, such and such in red. Here we go. Every week. Now, okay, move along with the appeal. So when in the appeal, when the BOE makes a decision, it's given back to me and I have to put it in. I have to create an ENR so the taxpayer could get what that tax at 85%, and then the remaining, the ENR would correct it. Well, Mr. Andrews don't have a stamp. He didn't have a stamp. He would have to hand sign those ENRs. We had a meeting, a November meeting. Mr. Andrews could have signed those ENRs then. The folders wasn't given to me for me to put the ENRs in. That was withheld. So when we going down the list, I'm checking out the list. So that was like, oh, this one already went before that this was done. How's it done? I didn't get I didn't get the folder. I didn't get a folder. It can't be done. I still got to open in the system. So to me, that's a sabotage on my job. So if a taxpayer was to get that, because they're going to get two bills. They get the other part of the bill, they're going to call up there, they're going to be fussing. I'm going to get in trouble because it looks like that I haven't done my job. When I'm doing my job, you sabotaging it. I don't have anything to do with anything. I'm not an appraiser. I don't know how to do, I don't know how to do the grades. I don't mess with it. I don't mess with, I'm not an appraiser. But still, that's sabotaging. I was so upset that day. I walked out and I walked around. I left my phone. I walked around the track and I went back up front. Mr. Jim will tell you, I was crying then. He said, what's wrong, Miss Clark? I said, and I explained to him, I said, Mr. Jim, I said, I haven't done anything to anybody in that office. I said, just because whoever they don't like, now you're trying to sabotage me. I haven't done anything. He said, Miss Clark, he said, you're doing the right thing, walk it off. He said, you're doing the right thing. It's got to stop. And it's not going to stop. Because, it's not. I just don't get it.
Well, I appreciate everything you've told us, and I don't know if you realize it or not, but you've made many more comments about your concern for the taxpayers than you have for your concern about yourself. I don't know if you realize that or not, but I realize it.
Yes.
And everyone here should realize it, and that's exactly what I was referring to previously, that's why everybody's here, and it's clear you understand that mission. And so I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I make an observation?
Yes, sir.
And I've been quiet because I've heard this before. And I can say the previous board heard it before. We had no way of how to correct it. Our intent was to try to correct it. But we got badgered in a Board of Commissioners meeting. Nobody calls me. Nobody tells me nothing. I just get sandbagged at a Board of Commissioners meeting. Now I'm sitting in here again. These meetings were never contentious. We come in, we do we hear the chief appraiser report, and we approve those couvers or whatever being presented to us. That's how those meetings ran. But somewhere behind the back room or something got twisted. And when it got twisted, my name got thrown around, and the other members' names got, the chairman name got badgered around, and she just didn't have the stamina to absorb it, okay? But the reason why I think that all of this has happened, and again, this is just my observation, it's generated from that letter that was signed by the employees that did not want their supervisor to be hired. And like you said, you can't make people like nobody. But if they're supposed to do a job, they should have done their job. I can say that if I was in Mr. George's position, it was a no-win situation. Meaning that he did not have the authority at the time to discipline the employees because they did not even have a personnel manual that was adopted. The previous board adopted a personnel manual, which is ditto what the county has, because there was actions done by employees that just was not, you know, they were totally out of order. And they could not go, those actions by the employee could not go without being addressed. And so, in my opinion, we took the high road. We suspended the employee with pay just to cool the waters. And when the employee was brought back, we used the employee manual to put a reprimand in their file. Nothing discouraging there, just to try to bring about some type of ease. Because I sympathize with those employees. I mean, that's their livelihood. And all this discourse has been generated, not from the Board of Tax Assessors that was in place, but from some outside entity. And that wasn't fair to the employees, and I said now it wasn't fair to that board at the time. Now, how you resolve it, I have no idea. But I can tell you that from my standpoint, I don't come in here with a preconceived agenda. I take the information as it's disseminated to me, and I make a decision based upon the information that's being provided to me. I don't look at the video, I don't listen to the tape, because again, there's a backstory to everything on that tape. Unless you've been privy to the entire dialogue for 12 months or whatever, I don't pry into that, okay? I've heard from the employees that said they had conflict with the peer review. I've heard from the chief appraiser that said that he had conflict with the peer review. So at this point, I don't know what's up and what's up, okay? But that's why I've been silent. I heard this before, and maybe you can be, Solomon, and figure out what's the resolve. But I can tell you, there's a mess there, and that mess wasn't generated independently from that Board of Tax Assessors at the time, nor all the employees in the room. And I think you have seen an example of the employees that came up that was compassionate about their jobs, and I thought that was the reason for the dialogue instead of throwing bricks. And that's why I asked to make sure that, and you supported me by saying that these comments should be courteous and fair. And that's where I stand, courteous and fair, not be rude, obnoxious, and just totally disrespectful. And I appreciate you supporting me on what I consider you did when you said that. Because again, I would like these employees, because I'm not there managing them, to live or work in a very harmonious, productive, professional environment. Okay?
Thank you. I do think we have to keep facts and county performance separate from personnel, and I mean that I'm not clear how you fix that,
Yep, I'm
that
not
either.
opposed.
But I will say, and we will open it briefly for public comments before we go into executive session. I'm not, I see you. I'm not naive. I have read some interactions and reviewing stuff, Mr. Andrews, and it's unacceptable, in my opinion. I think that the office will benefit, and I understood from Ms. Wagner that EAP has been offered before, so it's a reminder of that, if that would help anyone. But, the professionalism has to change and will change. And that's all there is to that.
being recorded since she's not over there to take minutes? So she can take minutes from the recording?
I can probably take it from the recording and
But
my own.
is it being recorded?
Mhm.
I know the
It is.
recorder's usually over there, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and there's one behind you as well. It got moved around. As everyone knows, I'm Kim Adams. I'm one of the people that came forward as a whistleblower against this department on September 3rd. And everything that I said that day has been vindicated by multiple state agencies as true. We have not treated people properly through fair taxation. We have been inappropriately regrading things, doing overrides, not creating a true, fair, and equal digest. That's what the state report says. And yes, it is in mostly plain speak language that people can understand. The regulations are there for anyone that wants to look it up if something isn't clear as well. This report is embarrassing. I stick with this. I am embarrassed by our performance because professionally, we've done a bad job. And this report vindicates that we have not done a good job. We have not been good to the citizens of Jones County. They've talked about having to constantly educate taxpayers. That's our job. Our job is not just to create the digest, but to provide the education because people outside this industry can't know. And that's our job, provide that education to people. We've done yes, we have been doing questionnaires. That is one thing I do disagree with. I believe it was put into WinGap in either 2013 or 2014, and they have been consistently done them. It was not new when Tony got here. It was done by a previous chief appraiser for an extended period of time. I had a job description when I got here in 2012. That is something else. I had a job description then. They were there. Andrea had, probably before then, had one for her. They brought up there's limited that I will say about the 24th. But yes, it was the fact that a taxpayer came in and thanked me for standing up and starting the ball rolling on doing something right that started all the things that were done to me that day. Not that I did not do to anyone else. I was done too. And because of that, I have been ostracized. I have not been able to do my job completely. I have not been able to serve the taxpayers. I have been suspended because of standing up for what's right. I was written up for standing up for what's right. And that is not right at all. When I left that day, I was trying to hold it together in front of my son. I was doing what any good mama would do, which is to hold it in until I could deal with it without breaking down in front of my son. And if someone sees a problem with that, you think much differently than I do. Much differently. I have told the truth. With the work, I have been proven beyond true already. The incident Tanisha talked about with that one taxpayer, she was not very stable, in my opinion. She tried to make us go down a path that was impassable and then chased us back to the office and came in and made a big scene. What am I supposed to do when they can't get to a place at 4:45 in the afternoon, and then someone literally chases me back. That's not right either. So they weren't representing that story correctly. And it's been the responsibility in my mind of the chief appraiser and the board to be the ones investigating, to ask questions, to try to find out what happened, and not just accept what they're told by others, not make their own assumptions, to actually ask and investigate. That has not happened. For work, one of the things I've been tasked to do since this all started was to go over an override list. And I'm going to give you a few numbers, and these are hard numbers. I can prove you every single one of these. I was given a list of 2,533 overrides to classify. I was told that Tony wanted me to classify them, which were on for what reasons. Since then, Anthony George had very limited conversations with me about it. I've always been willing. He hasn't inquired at all. The few times I have talked to him, I've been blown off or completely ignored. I've also made inquiries to him about it and how to handle things with no response. Of those 2,533 overrides, I'm not going to go through all of these just for some time, but 247 were just straight overrides on land with usually no good reason except the market change. That's not a good reason. I had 688 overrides on mobile home. Again, kind of willy-nilly. There was no reasonings. There was no notes for them. There was 420 sale-related overrides on houses. That means a house sold, so it got an override on it. That's, again, inappropriate. 208 sale-related overrides on land, and 142 sale-related overrides on mobile homes. These are just arbitrarily sales chasing and inappropriate. When I tried to express the general, I did not have these numbers at the time, the general sentiments to Mr. Andrews and Ms. Morgan and all the other board members at the time in the executive session where they were taking the evidence. They interrupted me frequently when I tried to explain it was not proper to do. Yes, it was physically possible to make these changes, but it wasn't proper. And I was trying to explain why, and I would get cut off and said, just like he did earlier with Bill, he didn't want to hear it. I work hard for this office. I do a lot for this office. I have 2 pages here about different things that I have done just since September, despite all that I've been through, despite being what I think improperly suspended and improperly written up for the taxpayers. I have taken and removed 1,417 overrides myself. Is that fixing the override problem? Not really. Well, it's fixing the override problem, but that doesn't fix the problem. The problem is the values. I've researched hundreds of mobile homes to try to get them in correctly. We have so much to do, and to say that most of this peer review has been fixed, I think is blatantly false, and it's short-sighted. It's not understanding the issues, because this is going to take a couple years to fully fix. And if you don't acknowledge that, then you're not acknowledging the problem, in my opinion. And as for training, and Andrea heard me say this over and over again, I have always told him I'm willing to go to any training, anytime, anywhere he wants to send it to me. I've told him in 2018, when I got that job, I need to go to specialized assessments and the mobile home classes. And I've been told over and over again, I'm not sending you to class. I was out of compliance from 12/7/2020, 12/7/2022, and 12/7/2022 to 12/7/2024. I don't have control over when I get sent to class. He had control. I never refused a class. I always went when he was willing to schedule me. But I was out of compliance, and I had no recourse in being able to schedule myself, because that is something he has to do. I look forward to fixing so many things, and I hope that we have the opportunity. I want to work with people to get the office in a good place and be fair to the taxpayers. And I think that the county is owed that, us working together to get this whole mess, embarrassing mess. Trust me, I was at class and we were the don't. Because there was so many things in that class that was in this report of things we should never do, that are horrible practices, should never be done. I learned so much that week on many levels. And I did graduate that class with a 93, just so I put my score out there. Thank you for listening, and I hope that we have the opportunity to fix this.
Let me ask a question, please. So, you came to our meetings, and you sat at one of these chairs here, and presented our Cougars to us and passed them around, and we accepted your explanation to sign and approval without question. We respected your professionalism. But all this information that you're disseminating there was never brought to the forefront, and you call it whistleblowing. So we, the board at the time, was the employer for the chief appraiser as well as you, but why did you not disclose that information?
Because
to the
I was
board?
discouraged from doing so.
Who discouraged you?
Anthony George did not want that discussed. He did not want anything contrary. He said he did not want any other opinions other than his. And at times when I have spoken to the board, that was the same impression I got, especially after I gave it and I came forward. The only opinion you wanted was the opinion that you were interested in providing.
Okay, let me explain something to you. You're showing me a large level of disrespect now, okay? That's what you're
I'm
doing.
answering
That's
your
what you're
question.
doing. That's what you're doing. But I'm gonna say this. So you didn't feel the liberty to disclose it at a meeting when there's no one here. The meetings weren't even being videotaped. But you felt compelled to do it in an open commissioners meeting. That's why I didn't understand that.
After Anthony George invited the employees to make statements.
But I just asked you, he invited you every time at this meeting, at our meetings, to present the covers. And even we had a situation where a gentleman came and he was upset about how his boat had been appraised. And the chief appraiser deferred to you to give explanation for that reason. So I just don't understand. And I hadn't heard a plausible reason why that information wasn't provided to this board as opposed to the Board of Commissioners.
It was made clear that the only topics to be discussed and the only opinions to be given were the approved ones.
All right, so I watched some of the opinion of the commissioners meeting, and the direction you were given from the chief appraiser was to explain the process, not to disclose like you're being given tonight. So if you had the liberty at the Board of Commissioners meeting without being directed to provide the information, why again you did not provide, you didn't feel the liberty to do it at this year.
I believe that the Board of Commissioners was willing to listen, where I did not get that impression from the Board of Assessors.
So do you have a particular reason why?
As I said in the past, I know I've been pretty much discouraged from giving any opinion that was not the one that painted a rosy picture.
You were given that from the board, or you were given, by the way, my name is Mrs. Morgan.
I apologize if I
No problem.
referred to you
No problem.
differently.
I've been referred to that several times, but Mrs. Were you given that directive from the board or someone else? Because I don't recall that at all.
The direct word's not been stated, but that has been the attitude where if anything was started to be talked about, you'd look at Tony would say something and
sorry,
move
I
on. You as the board. The board is the general statement that I'm making. I'm not making a single statement towards any individual. It is the board as an entity that I'm speaking of.
So you're saying that you would make a statement and the entire board would look at Tony? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, because as I remember during the meeting, I don't recall any of those numbers that you just gave and me interrupting you as you just stated. Those are untruths. I recall me asking you personally, when you said that you had distrust for this board, how that made zero sense, that you would not trust this board who had been with you every month. We talked about your surgery, we talked about your hair, we talked about your son. You were so personable with everything in your life, but you didn't trust us enough to come and talk with us about what was going on. But you trusted a board of commissioners where one in particular said that you were incompetent and should be fired. Though that was the conversation that night, not what you just implied, or I'm not implied, but just said where we interrupted you. Because I personally did not, because none of that came out. That conversation was all about how you didn't trust the board. And my conversation to you made no sense, because you had been so personable every month.
To quote a famous person, I guess recollections may vary on that, because that was not what you've just described is not my experience.
You don't recall that conversation at all?
It was not in the way that you have just phrased it, no.
I said that you wouldn't trust us, whereas we discussed your surgery, personal, your hair, your son running for the board, none of that. But you trusted a board of commissioners that had a guy, Sam Kitchens to be exact, that said to you, you're incompetent and you should be fired.
Well,
Do you not recall that? Because you're correct. Recollection is very important, because we can pull a tape. That was said. You don't recall that? Okay.
Oh, I know the statement that you're referring to, and I understand the slant that you are given.
It's not
I'm
a
saying that
slant.
my understanding of that is different than yours.
Well, for the record, can I speak, Chairman? I read the 142-page report. I stand by what I interpreted to mean, irregardless of a employee telling me it's readable in plain English, okay?
That's been said several times.
I think that was disrespectful, okay? I already stated for the record what I said. I don't need a staff employee coming up here trying to, chastise me on what I stated. I listened explicitly to everything Kim said. And I know for a fact she was directing, without one finger, she pointed to me every time. I serve as a board. I did not vote her independently to be suspended. That was a board decision. But she wanted to take, an opposition to me. And I'm not going to sit here and let a employee throw their hand in my face in a meeting and show me that disrespect. That's disrespectful.
One second, I'm very sorry. If this is not allowed for me to do, I'll submit myself to lecturing later. This is a professional
Thank
and
you.
legal setting. You would not outburst in front of the Board of Commissioners, and you would not outburst in front of an attorney and a lawyer while they're speaking with the judge. No more outbursts. Let them do their job. Let them do their job. If the chair lady perceives that a problem is being had with the line of questioning, she can call a point of order and it would finish. We are to remain quiet until it is our turn to speak. All right?
Thank you.
And to that point, it wasn't a personal action by Tim Andrews. It was for the board. So I want to make sure that when you direct your comments, it's not for me personally, it's for the whole board.
Well, I'm sorry if any misinterpretation was, or if I gave the wrong indication for it. Yes, it was a board decision. It was not an individual decision by you to suspend me or to write me up for being a whistleblower. It was a board decision. You, and the two of you were two members of said board, so it is directed at the board as the entirety and the entirety.
And as a point of correction, you were not written up for being a whistleblower. You were written up for insubordination in how you presented it.
Was
And
it my actions
it was
on?
in your letter.
Was it on, for my actions on September the 3rd?
Not for, but how.
Okay, so I was written up due to the
How?
fact that I spoke of,
No, ma'am. You're not
due
putting
to
words in
how,
my mouth.
due
No,
to
ma'am.
how I
Miss-
spoke?
No,
Hey,
ma'am,
let's-
has nothing to do with how you spoke or what you spoke.
Okay.
It was the process in how you went about it.
Okay, I understand
There
that.
is- There is a process in place, and you did not follow that process.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any?
No, thank you. It is almost 7 o'clock, and we would like to retire at some point. Whoever wants to speak before we open public comments, will raise your hand just so we have kind of an idea of how many people want to speak, and if none, then we may break. No hands?
Were there any other
Oh.
employees that were on your list that didn't get a chance?
And I know you know this, but we're still on the 2-minute rule for public comments
Yes, ma'am.
until next meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Sam Kitchens, I'm on the Board of Commissioners. And I just want to make a couple of comments. First, I want to clarify something, and I'll coin something that was said earlier about if you bark at me, don't think I'm not going to bark back. That's twice you've made comments that I said on, and it's on video, that they needed to be fired and they were incompetent. I believe my exact words were, I want to know what the problem is, and wherever the problem lies, that's where the fix needs to come in. Whether it's with the staff, whether it's with the department head, or whether it's with this board. That was what I said. I watched that video twice. And if I need to request this board to play that video with y'all's next meeting, I'll be glad to do that, because I don't like being called out for something I didn't do. Having said that,
Neither do
I
I.
appreciate the direction this board's going. I want y'all to remember one thing. Tony was hired in 2016-ish. A lot of these people here in 2016. I've heard from the staff tonight that we've been a family. We bought cakes for each other. We partied together. We, not party, but party in the office together for birthdays and special occasions. Up until 2023, when all this happened, is what I keep hearing, is all this happened. It's no coincidence that in 2023 is when we found out, along with Tony's record of having us within the sales ratio that we needed to be in up until 2023, when we found out about that we were below 36%. We started questioning it as a board. We started talking about it. Things started getting crazier and crazier. We appealed it that year. We were denied our appeal. The next year, we were asking, what's our plan? I asked that 3 times to this board. What's our plan going forward to get us back in the right direction? We've got a plan. We've got a plan. The next year comes along, we're even lower on our sales ratios. So we appeal again, we go to arbitration, we start looking at, do we need to have a peer review? Do we need to find out what the problem is? I've heard several times tonight that the peer review, almost saying that it can't be trusted. Those are 3 independent professionals that came in, have nothing to do with Jones County. I hope that nobody on that review board would be influenced by anybody in this county to go against what their career is made of. So I hope y'all take that into account when you start looking at this review. They got their information exactly from the interviews. So they got it from somewhere. They didn't make it up. So just want to know, we didn't have a problem from 2016 to 2023 until we started finding out in 2023 that 22, 23, and 24 has been a problem for us. Never had a problem with Tony, the staff. I've probably been in that office 4 or 5 times in my life for personal reasons and have never had anything but the nicest things said to me, for me, helped me in every way that I needed to be helped. So there's never been a problem with me and anybody on that staff. So I don't know where those come from. Thank y'all.
Thanks, sir.
I didn't see any other hands, so we close that. I think
We did call for it, though. Are there any other public comments?
did I miss any hands? Is there any other person? Okay. Do I have a motion to close this and move to executive session briefly?
Make a motion to close?
Second.
To go into executive session, or? All right, all in favor? Okay, we will be in recess for a few minutes, and just for the record, we will, to keep everyone from having to get up and move, I asked if we could use the boardroom around the corner, and they said we could, so figured it'd be easier for us to move than them, since it wasn't being recorded.
Good luck with that. I made an offer that like that and I got you.
With open meeting.